A restless 19-year-old once found himself in a gritty part of town that sat on the edge of a much bigger city, known for its harsh realities and tough streets. For ages, he had been wrapped up with the wrong friends, drifting along in a place brimming with uncertainty. Everything in his life felt tense and on the brink of unraveling. Night after night, he tried to come up with the best practices for clawing out of this environment, yet old loyalties and the rush of the familiar held him captive. His mind whispered promises about some new destination far away, about a future filled with opportunity. But deep down, he hesitated to leave before savoring just one last evening with the only companions he had known. He had been saving for months, stashing away cash beneath creaking floorboards and inside battered dresser drawers, readying himself for what he believed would be a final departure. On the evening of his supposedly last celebration, the group gathered in front of a rundown home shaded by drooping branches that seemed as weary as he felt. Long-necked bottles of cheap beer lined the porch, and smoke curled upward from more than a few cigarettes and other substances. That day, they indulged in every easy method known to keep the mind in a hazy cloud. Our restless young adventurer, enthralled by the buzzing excitement, yearned for something more stimulating beyond the next gulp or puff. He approached a friend known for his ability to procure almost anything. A step-by-step arrangement was quickly made. Eager to chase a unique high before leaving his old life behind, he asked for stronger stuff, something that might spark a new dimension of sensation. Soon, his friend reappeared, clutching what looked like a weathered brownish rock. It reminded him of some dusty chunk chipped off a limestone foundation. Without truly listening to the details, the young man only caught the word cocaine and decided it was time for a more intense experience. In his youthful recklessness, he mimicked what he would do for a powdery version. This must be snorted, he thought, just like every other line that once fueled a frenzied night. He crushed the chunk and inhaled, wholly unaware that what he really held was something akin to fledgling crack cocaine. As soon as his friend discovered the mistake, panic flickered in the friend's eyes. But the young man brushed off the fear, chuckling at any suggestion that this dose might kill him. He had already skirted danger with so many substances. Why should this be any different? The knowledge that it cost so little made him think it couldn't be that dangerous. Eventually, the entire group drifted outside under a dull street lamp's glow. Neighborhood dogs barked in the distance, as if warning of something ominous. He sensed willful disorientation, dizziness that made the pavement tilt and swirl, so he settled on the ground, hoping to steady himself. But the world kept spinning. He laid down, face upward, drifting, only to black out after a few heartbeats. Time became meaningless, dissolving like a half-forgotten dream. His next recollection felt like an odd dream, or maybe some wild tale from a how-to on astral travel. He was certain he was fully conscious, yet he observed the night continue around him. He caught glimpses of himself in a vehicle alongside his rowdy group, passing by his parents' home. Fear gripped him at the possibility of being spotted in such a condition, so he ducked, trying to remain invisible from any watchful eyes. Even in this altered state, swirling illusions gave him glimpses of small, glowing figures hidden in bushes and in the trees, entities that vanished when he turned to face them. These eerie sightings roamed his mind, painting reality in a darker hue. Then, in a blink, that portion of his memory slipped away, replaced by the sensation of waking up. He found himself seated in a loud, brightly lit family room, as if no time had passed at all. Painted across the walls were signs of a wild night: empty containers, leftover ash in trays, the stale odor of smoke. But the music boomed louder than the thunder of a passing train. Its volume crawled under his skin, slicing the air. It was the kind of intensity that could rattle someone's mind more than any cinematic jump scare. When he tried to turn the stereo down, an invisible force prevented his hand from twisting the knob. He struggled to yank the plug from the socket, only to discover that his fingers refused to make contact. Panic rose. His voice shook the stale air, but no one seemed to answer. Trying to navigate the rest of the building, he realized that he could see into every room. almost as if he merely had to think about gazing into a particular space. Yet each nook and cranny appeared empty. He felt his heart pounding, or perhaps it was just a phantom of a heartbeat, because suddenly he was in the kitchen. How did I get here? He wondered. And then the motion repeated itself in reverse, leading him back into the family room, where he spotted something that froze him in place. That body sprawled on the seat. It wasn't just anybody, it was his own. An unspeakable fear crashed down because he realized exactly what had happened. The overdose. Here he was, intangible, looking at the physical shell he once inhabited. Shaken to the core, he called out for help. No answer came. Desperation slammed into him like a wave, and he remembered vague references from childhood about prayer. Maybe that's the only option left. So he prayed to a higher force, mumbling pleas to be saved. Immediately, a presence formed near the doorway. At first it appeared as multicolored fluttering lights, an aura that coalesced into what looked like a person with curly hair and deep eyes, though the mouth never moved. Instead, thoughts, feelings, and words echoed from this radiant figure straight into his mind. The entity gave him a sense of peace, indicating it was here to guide him. The spirit, whom he mentally named Bob, for lack of a better label, told him he had a choice. The music finally softened, as if on command, and in the next gasp of awareness, the two of them were somehow outside, standing in the driveway. This supernatural presence told him it was familiar with all his inner secrets, all the good, all the bad, every private worry. Indeed, Bob began referencing milestones and personal details dating back to childhood, the drama of his parents' split, the comedic quirks of an uncle, and random memories nobody else could possibly know. Convinced, the young man trusted Bob wholeheartedly. If someone knew him so intimately, they must be legitimate, right? Bob then offered a special kind of tutorial. They could travel anywhere. The spirit suggested going beyond the everyday experience, unveiling the great big wonders of existence. The starry-eyed youth then thought excitedly of ancient pyramids, those monuments that so many dream about. In what seemed less than a heartbeat, they arrived in a sun-baked land. He observed the pyramids as if they were newly constructed, with glistening surfaces that contrasted fiercely with more modern incarnations. A mental layering allowed him to see both the distant past and the present moment, superimposed in a single field of vision, a bizarre dual exposure. This revelation led to deeper insights about energy, time, and universal interactions. Bob, in a step-by-step explanation, hinted that these pyramids were part of an intricate grid funneling cosmic power. The planet took in energy from something bigger than itself, used it, then sent it back out. The conversation felt too elaborate, brimming with nuances he couldn't entirely grasp. Nevertheless, the sights were mesmerizing, flooding him with wonder. Desiring to see more, he urged Bob to move slowly so he could absorb the transition. They rose to the heights where only space shuttles roam. Down below, he observed the planet's grand tapestry, complete with swirling seas, sprawling continents, and bursts of colorful vibrations. Some areas, mostly wilderness and wide-open oceans, radiated luminous energy, bright and refreshing. Urban centers, however, seemed to swirl with darker, heavier vibrations, so thick that they felt tangible. Scanning across the globe, he noticed other equally luminous entities, presumably more beings like Bob, escorting wandering souls, some glowing like he was, others cloaked in a shadowy darkness. Bob clarified these gloomier figures were humans who had passed away but resisted the typical path into the light, for varied reasons like fear, ignorance, or sheer refusal. Spirits such as Bob dedicated themselves to guiding those lost shadows home. Before the young man fully digested that shocking truth, an impulse ignited. What does Earth look like as a whole? Immediately the vantage changed, including an ultimate guide to planetary observation, unveiling the entire blue globe, haloed with layers of color. He saw dynamic shifts, blues near the surface, morphing into streaks of red, green, and vibrant white. It was stunning, a cosmic kaleidoscope of living energy. Bob disclosed that Earth even carried a name, Gaia, a living force interconnected with every life form on its surface. This idea opened a floodgate of concern. Are we, as humans, hurting Gaia? Bob affirmed that humanity had indeed neglected the synergy we're meant to cultivate with the planet. The youth felt an urgent pang, wanting to set things right, to share best practices, for existing in harmony with the environment. With eyes still turned to the cosmic expanse, he questioned the distant stars. Could they travel there too? Bob asked him to pick any point in the sky to investigate. The young man pointed to something shining in the distance. Soon they sailed beyond the orbits of planetary bodies. Each planet glimmered with its own aura. He observed structures or spiritual dwellings only visible to those not limited by a physical form. Astral travel felt immediate, as if the full galaxy had become a whimsical playground. Reaching what he first believed to be a star, he discovered it resembled some gravitational anomaly, perhaps like a black hole, but with hints of bright sky blue swirling at the center. Its power drew in matter from all directions. A bold part of him yearned to see what lay inside, but Bob insisted that venturing there required readiness far beyond his current level. Something about that swirling portal beckoned him, like a final frontier in a tutorial on the cosmos he was now receiving. With the question of divinity on his mind, he asked Bob about a higher creator. The response shattered his earlier religious conceptions. God, as commonly invoked, was not a punishing authority, but instead the collective energy embedded in all things. Humans, planets, stars, every form of life, all belonged to this vast tapestry of consciousness. Then he inquired about revered figures from his upbringing, most notably a teacher called Jesus. Bob called him an ascended master, one among several luminous souls guiding humanity. Suddenly, an intense brightness enveloped the young man, and a figure radiating warmth emerged within the glow. This presence felt exactly like the religious figure from his childhood chapel. Without words, it pressed a message into his heart. Love one another, and all will be well. That was it. The radiant presence dissolved, leaving a sense of awe that lingered like a gentle perfume. He next beheld a rolling cosmic chorus, as if the planets themselves sang like bells. They each contributed a distinct tone, harmonizing like an ethereal symphony. The reverberations reminded him of the hum he had heard earlier, emanating from his own body. It all merged into one mesmerizing tune, a hidden pattern underlying existence itself. After this crescendo, Bob mentioned an additional stop near Earth, a locale that existed in a higher vibrational plane just beyond normal senses. The young man agreed, curious about the behind-the-scenes perspective of existence. In an instant, they glided to an astral zone that overlooked the planet. He observed large glowing structures and a wide courtyard filled with subtle streams of light where traveling spirits came and went. He and Bob entered a tidy home that contained multiple rooms. Each space housed spiritual entities who appeared to know him intimately, yet from his perspective, they were strangers. Concern rippled in their expressions, indicating surprise at his unplanned arrival. Moving on, they approached a bigger building, predominantly white with glowing wooden beams. Within its walls was a bench made of a material that radiated a soft luminescence. On one side, tall double doors towered, as if leading to something important. Bob requested he wait on the bench. Then, the spirit slipped through those doors. While alone, the young man experienced a potent sense of déjà vu. He felt as though he had once been in this exact place, under drastically different conditions. Soon, Bob came back and announced that it was the young man's turn to go inside. Encouraged not to fear and to answer truthfully, he opened the doors and found a semicircular table with about half a dozen spirit-like beings, some more familiar than others. They projected images from his life, from crucial childhood events to everyday moments that had molded him into who he was. They showed the heartbreak of a broken home, comedic relatives, decisions that set him on certain paths. Then they asked the big question, has your life been overall positive, or more on the negative side? A pang of panic shot through him. He recognized that these beings could hear his thoughts. A false answer would be futile. These spirits informed him he had two choices: remain in this dimension or return to the physical realm. Inside, he desperately yearned to stay, frightened of facing the hardships waiting in his old life. The energies in the building felt gentler, kinder, more honest than anything he had ever known. But abruptly, he found himself ejected back outside, sitting in a lush garden near a stone seat. The vivid colors of flowers and a faraway shimmering river soothed his nerves. He reflected for what felt like hours, entirely focused on how best to serve himself. Then Bob reappeared, asking if he'd reached a decision. Bob cautioned him that returning to his body meant difficulty, uncertain employment, recurring health problems, and a series of challenges. Yet he also revealed that the youth was on track to meet someone special, to marry and raise children, one of whom would need his guidance more desperately than words could convey. The thought that a loving partner might be out there, wanting him, filled a void he'd barely acknowledged. Suddenly, his personal comfort in this heavenly realm seemed secondary. A flicker of commitment ignited. He would go back for the sake of these future souls, this wife, these children, people who had yet to experience their own stories. Resolved to return, he joined Bob at the edge of the river. He was told that crossing these waters would cleanse away certain recollections he was not permitted to bring back. Bob touched him lightly near the mouth, signifying the story he was meant to share upon returning. Then, with one fluid motion, he submerged himself in the water, emerging somewhere in a star-flecked expanse, trailing a luminous path that wound toward Earth. As he neared that familiar home, no barrier seemed to exist between him and the walls. He simply glided indoors, saw the first pink edges of sunrise crest over the horizon, and felt the energy of a brand new day. Upon locating his body, silent, slumped, and appearing lifeless, he willed himself inside it. There was a gentle pop. Immediately he tested each limb, verifying that everything still worked. Bursting with excitement and urgent to share this behind-the-scenes knowledge, he tried to relay the events to his unconscious friends, who blinked in confusion. They chalked it up to an overdose, dismissing his frantic retelling as little more than delirium. Even those who had once been the closest to him exchanged puzzled glances. He tried to speak with relatives, only to be greeted by skepticism or disinterest. It felt as if a gulf of misunderstanding separated him from everyone else. Exhausted, he dozed off, and dream fragments came swirling back. Some voice, not Bob, tried to prepare him, warning that a particular friend might soon perish from a drunk driving accident. The voice even revealed the friend's name. Half awake, he recoiled from this knowledge, unwilling to accept more burdens. But not long afterward, events unfolded exactly as the dream had predicted. The friend refused all warnings, labeling them crazy talk. Within just a few hours, the friend was gone, leaving the young man with an uncanny certainty that his experience had been no mere fevered hallucination. For years, he kept the story inside. He married, had children, and eventually told his spouse, relieved to discover she embraced the possibility of such encounters. Many years later, he ventured to share a more detailed account with a wider audience through various means, hoping that these revelations about cosmic energy and deeper spiritual truths might guide someone to a better reality. Even if the entire world dismissed him or questioned his sanity, he could not bury what he had witnessed. The scope of universal connectivity, the idea that our planet was alive, the notion that the energy of every being pulsed in sync with something infinitely greater, those insights became his anchor. The more he contemplated this transformation, the more he recognized that the encounter left him with a new perspective on existence. He had glimpsed top 10 strategies, metaphorically speaking, for navigating the spiritual realm, from forging compassion to embracing unity to comprehending the illusions we let rule us. He realized an ultimate guide to living was embedded in that instruction to love one another, and that the truly viral hack for humanity's evolution was based on empathy and on forging deeper bonds. There were moments of despair in later years when obstacles appeared insurmountable, health challenges loomed, and the difficulty of providing for his family weighed him down. But each time, memories of the cosmic expanse, Bob's gentle reassurance, and the echo of that enthralling universal symphony kept just enough hope burning to push him onward. Reflecting on his illusions in that family room, disembodied yet present, he recognized that dramatic experience as a tutorial in gratitude. Encountering his own motionless form forced him to appreciate the precious nature of living. Meanwhile, witnessing how energies connect bound him to the earth in a fresh way. Every breath, he believed, was an exchange of cosmic essence, linking him to trees, oceans, and stars. The trifling cost of that fateful night's rock, ironically, granted him celestial understanding that influenced how he treated everyone around him. He shared these revelations when people were ready to listen. How-to pointers on tapping into empathy, step-by-step methods for spiritual introspection, best practices for harnessing love's power as a transformative force. Rarely did he follow a tradition of preaching. He preferred letting others see through life stories, simple discussion, or subtle hints that their existence might be far more profound and interconnected than they ever imagined. Strangely enough, across the decades, that set of swirling cosmic vibrations never left him. Whenever he felt the weight of the world pressing in, he paused, closed his eyes, and mentally called to Bob, or perhaps the universal energy behind everything. In that quiet, he could sense an echo of the synergy he once experienced. It wasn't about conjuring visions on demand or drifting outside his body. It was more like tuning into something that was always there, the hum beneath everyday noise. Some nights, he found himself watching the stars again. Each sparkling dot reminded him of that bizarre vantage point, seeing Earth as a jewel nestled within a grand cosmic tapestry. While humans often scuffled over trivial matters, the planet, named Gaia, quietly spun, giving life a chance to blossom. Those recollections urged him to keep telling his story, even if it took many more attempts before others understood. The near loss of his life, that frantic prayer in the empty house, and the glimpse of otherworldly love illustrated that hope can emerge from even the grimmest situations. Over time, he refined the narrative, adding dramatic storytelling elements that captured the essence of being young, naive, and reckless. Swept up in the latest trends of partying, ignoring personal limits, and flirting with danger. He inserted references to behind-the-scenes glimpses into how universal energies move, or how easy methods and top 10 strategies might tame fear. He continuously repeated the Ascended Master's message of unity and compassion, sure that it held the key to transforming not just personal life, but possibly society at large. This storied journey, from that first moment of lighting a cigarette on a shabby porch to traveling astrally over ancient pyramids, remains a prime example of how a single misstep can open portals to revelations of unimaginable scale. The layers of existence are extensive, the complexities vast, and yet the simplest truth emerges: love one another. That was the final directive from a figure enveloped in radiant light. Throughout history, countless teachers have championed the same concept, demonstrating that ultimate awakening often arrives in the humblest package. In the many years that followed, he tried to incorporate spiritual practice into daily life. Though never perfect at it, he found an anchor in meditative stillness, in moments when he recalled the swirling orbits, the glow of distant planets, the comforting presence of Bob, and that overshadowing sense that none of us are ever truly alone. While peers might dismiss him as a dreamer or an eccentric, he clung to the knowledge that his life's purpose radiated far beyond a mere physical existence. He had endured a bizarre threshold of near death, only to return with an unwavering clarity of cosmic unity. Skeptics sometimes asked him, "How can you be sure any of it was real? Couldn't it be a hallucination from an overdose?" Unflinching, he'd recount the future events he foresaw, especially the sad demise of his dear friend. He'd highlight the newfound conviction that transformed his worldview. He'd mention that from a single near disaster, he gained the inspiration to lead a more mindful life, focusing on fatherhood, on love, and on respecting the planet's boundaries. In doing so, he demonstrated the behind-the-scenes reality that spiritual changes can generate tangible physical outcomes. He urged people not to seek high-tail escapes through substances, but to consider this journey as a cautionary tale. Were it not for the grace of that cosmic encounter, he liked to say, my fate might have been sealed that very night. Instead, he came back with a mission to share an emotional reminder of how tenuous life truly is and how expansive the cosmic stage can be. In an effort to help others avoid dangerous paths, he sometimes delivered a short tutorial on personal discernment, learning to navigate the illusions of quick pleasure, staying conscious of hidden dangers disguised as cheap thrills, and recognizing the higher calling that can stir in the quiet recesses of a battered heart. By framing his rediscovery in the language of how-to, step-by-step, or even top 10 strategies for spiritual wakefulness, he hoped to reach beyond those with purely religious interests, calling out instead to everyday individuals from all walks of life. When he eventually posted the full account for larger audiences, messages poured in. Some wrote with gratitude, describing similar episodes they had been too anxious to share. Others questioned the rationality of the events, while a few attacked him for promoting nonsense. Still, he responded with calm, recalling that inner sense of cosmic acceptance. He knew the story might not resonate with everyone, but for those who needed reassurance that there was more, his words glimmered like a faint light in a dark corridor. Anticlimactic as it seemed to some, life after the vision wasn't all sunshine and progress. He battled his share of bleak days, wrestling with financial strain and health troubles that Bob had prophesied. There were nights he forgot the magnitude of what he experienced, only to be reminded by a dream, a random memory, or a moment of déjà vu that made him pause in mid-sentence. Each reminder served as a nudge, pushing him to keep forging onward. Through it all, those cosmic images remained as crisp in his mind as a photograph. The swirling color around the pyramids, the Earth's stunning aura, the unstoppable gravitational swirl that might have been a black hole, the resounding chorus of celestial bells. These recollections shaped his approach to life. He clung to the notion that everyone, at their core, houses limitless potential, a seed of that divine energy. Even if day-to-day existence feels dull or suffocating, somewhere beyond the rush of traffic and bills to pay, an entire cosmic symphony is waiting to be remembered. He never once called himself an expert, but in time, others began turning to him for advice, curious about the nature of existence, the reason for suffering, the possible interplay of consciousness with universal energy, or whether lost loved ones might be out there, waiting for an embrace in spirit form. His response was always gentle. "What I saw revealed that we are part of something bigger, something so breathtaking that words alone can't do it justice." If pushed for a more concrete how-to approach, he'd suggest simple daily acts of kindness, or focusing on a single problem in the family or community and trying to fix it from a place of love. These baby steps, he believed, aligned with the powerful wave of cosmic unity he once witnessed from high above the earth. The further he traveled in life, the more he recognized that no matter how bleak the news, or how bruising the personal battles, an unbreakable thread of hope and connection existed behind the scenes. Fresh possibilities soared within the intangible planes of universal energy, something always beckoning beyond the horizon. Humans might bicker and fight in city streets, but from a cosmic vantage, it looked painfully small, a conflict overshadowed by the majestic dance of galaxies. One day, sitting on his porch, gazing at the sky tinted orange by the setting sun, it hit him once more. He recalled that first moment he tried to share the story with friends strewn across dusty floors, all of them lost in drunken slumber. He'd felt so frustrated, desperate to convey the enormity of his out-of-body discoveries. He realized now that each soul awakens in its own time. Maybe some of them eventually found their own guides, or Bob-like figures who nudged them gently. He hoped so. He found that sharing the account wasn't about forcing a revelation on others, but extending an open invitation to wonder. His words might echo, "There's more to everything than you think, more to the world, more to life, more to yourself." The immediate reaction might be ridicule, friendship, or indifference, but seeds have a way of rooting in unexpected places. Even if his immediate gang brushed him off, perhaps strangers somewhere felt less alone after hearing his chronicle. Though the story began in a rough neighborhood, overshadowed by desperation and reckless choices, it climaxed in the ultimate guide to universal compassion. One poorly executed snort forced his mind to expand beyond physical limitations. A cosmic rescue taught him about synergy, cosmic roads of vibrant light, living worlds, and a type of divinity that embraced all life forms. No wrathful judge in the sky, just a current of energy, breathing into every creature. Mostly, he held tight to that parting instruction from the bright presence: love one another, and all will be well. With time's passage, he realized how this statement, though short, encompassed the entire lesson. The spirit known as Bob had guided him through an overview of existence, like a behind-the-scenes pass to everything from custody, mic structures, to astral planes, to the burdens of everyday life. Yet, when asked how to repair a broken world, the answer was heartbreakingly simple: love. Even as his years advanced and he bore the weight of experience, that single directive remained the single most essential truth. He had glimpsed a swirling realm of black holes, star clusters, astral cities, and intangible energies, only to discover that the purest power resided in sincere kindness. There was no need to dress it up in complex theological discourse or labyrinthine rules. The starry miracle of existence made sense when you chose empathy, not apathy. Decades passed, and the children he was once foretold to have grew up. One child in particular faced greater struggles, just as Bob had predicted. Yet the father was prepared, patiently guiding him as best he could. Each new dawn reminded him of that sunrise he once witnessed while drifting back into his body. The sun emerged every morning with a subtle musical hum, whether we're aware of it or not. Sometimes people asked if he missed that other realm, that place of dazzling white buildings and glowing wood. Yes, he missed it deeply. The feeling of unconditional love in that luminous city was unlike anything he'd felt on Earth. But he realized there was value in returning to a mortal existence, with its brutal lessons and raw experiences, its heartbreak and joys. Stories spread influence in odd, unpredictable ways, and maybe someone else out there was at the edge of despair, perched on a dangerous brink. By listening to his near-fatal misadventure, they might see that hope isn't always found in the well-lit corners of logic. Sometimes it arrives unannounced, shining through the darkest nights. In the end, the final lines of his account always circled back to the same central theme: energy, love, unity, and unspoken cosmic wonders. He believed that such an adventure could happen to anyone, anywhere, no matter their background or standing. A single moment might strip away the conventional layers of reality. But if there was one step-by-step easy method to carry forward from the experience, it was to remain open-hearted, to practice love daily, to recognize that you are part of something massive and beautiful. And so, that was his story, born out of a troubled youth in a challenging neighborhood, culminating in an extraordinary glimpse beyond everyday comprehension. Even as the noise of daily life threatened to drown it out, he held on to the memory, retelling it whenever possible, hoping that every breath of truth and wonder might help someone else see a new path. Through tragedy, transcendence, heartbreak, and revelation, he felt compelled, over and over, to utter the message gifted by that radiant presence. Treat each other with compassion, and ultimately find your way home.